Do you know what the Department of Housing and Urban Development is doing? But can somebody please tell me, why do we have a Department of Housing and Urban Development? Wasn't the Department of Housing and Urban Development involved in Detroit, Michigan? Yes. And as I always say, these departments are named because they're actually the opposite of what they are and the opposite of what they do. The Department of Urban Development is actually the Department of Housing, and no urban development. But these things never go away. I think John Kennedy created, so can't touch that. No. So that exists forever. By the way, one of my amendments deals with this too. Not just HUD, but all of them. But listen to what they're doing over there. They're very, very busy. When they're not destroying our inner cities, they're collecting data. Because that's what our government does. Lots and lots of data. And at least some of the people on the 5 don't care. They won't care until a GPS is stuck to their ass and follows them around. Then they'll go, wait a minute, we're going too far, the slippery slope. Anyway, to ensure that every American, this is CNS News, to ensure that every American is able to choose to live in a community they feel proud of, quote unquote, HUD has published a new fair housing regulation intended to give people access to better neighborhoods than the ones they currently live in. Oh, really? What's this all about? We tried busing. That worked so well. Well, what's this all about? The goal is to help communities understand, quote, fair housing barriers, unquote, and, quote, establish clear goals, unquote, for improving integrated living patterns and overcoming historic patterns of segregation. What? This proposed rule represents a 21st century approach to fair housing, a step forward to ensuring that every American is able to choose to live in a community they feel proud of, where they have a fair shot at reaching their full potential in life, said HUD Secretary Sean Donovan. Really? Breaking news, we have a HUD secretary named Sean Donovan. I never even heard of that guy. I didn't even know who the hell he is. All right, thank you. For the first time ever, says Sean Donovan, HUD will provide data for every neighborhood in the country, detailing the access of African American, Latino, Asian, and other communities. What happened to white? Have to local assets, including schools. Okay, here we go. Why do you think they're collecting all this data on who we are and where we are? Where are the white people? Where are the black people? Where are the brown people? Where are the Asian people? Where are they all living? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they want to, move things around. They got to figure out how to move things around because, as you know, as Sean Donovan, the Secretary of HUD, whom I've never heard of before, it's a 21st century approach to fair housing. Sure it is. I think they call it communism. Long-term solutions include helping people gain access to different neighborhoods and channeling investments into underserved areas. We did this before. It was called the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac toxic loan disaster. And HUD was behind that. The idiot governor of New York, Cuomo, was behind that. In a July 16 speech to the NAACP, does everybody speak to the NAACP? Mr. Producer, have I ever been invited to speak to the NAACP? Well, that's quite discriminatory. Our HUD Secretary, Sean Donovan, said the American dream still isn't within equal reach of all communities. He lamented the lack of diversity in America's boardrooms, schools, and the nation's strongest neighborhoods. Well, there is a solution. It's called North Korea. This is what we would do. We give all the power to one person who has the interests of the people at heart. Nobody can live in a community nicer than anybody else. Nobody serves on boards. We won't have boards. The government will own the means of production. This way it's fair. We have equality. This is what we'll do. We won't have fat people. In fact, we'll have skinny people. Why? Because people eat too much. So we'll just have 2 meals a day. Yes, we're going to have equality. And you see, our government's mapping out neighborhoods now. This is true. This is a true story. It's CNS News. New neighborhood mapping tool. So it will expand access to high-opportunity neighborhoods. Listen to how the nut jobs speak. And draw attention to investment possibilities in underserved communities. Make no mistake, this is a big deal, Donovan said. With the HUD budget alone, we're talking about billions of dollars. And as you know, decades ago, these funds were used to support discrimination. What's he talking about? Now they'll be used to expand opportunity and bring communities closer to the American dream. Is everybody in this administration a malcontent? Answer, yes. Is this another 50-year plan, like the original HUD plan? No talk about private property rights. No talk about creating opportunities for people of all levels, all backgrounds. None of that. This guy talks like a Marxist. Under the Fair Housing Act, HUD requires grantees such as cities that receive federal housing dollars to affirmatively further fair housing. Under the proposed rule, the neighborhood data provided by HUD will be used to evaluate patterns of integration and segregation, racial and ethnic concentrations of poverty, and access to valuable community assets. Now, the only place, obviously, that's not covered by this government mapping based on race, you believe this, is, of course, Martha's Vineyard. Because we know Obama wouldn't go to a place that's 104% white. No, that's not possible. Because we're busy mapping, the rest of America in different communities. HUD wants to know if existing laws and policies such as zoning, financing, infrastructure planning, and transportation create, perpetuate, or alleviate segregation. Their proposed rule explicitly incorporates fair housing decision-making. Well, now, wait a minute. Yes. The Zimmerman case is still over. And the royal couple had a baby boy. Thank you. Does this interest any of you folks here, what's going on to your country? That we have a federal department that is now mapping neighborhoods to determine the concentration or lack thereof of races and ethnicity throughout the country, and plans to have policies to address it? We used to have policies to address it. It was called capitalism. Folks, I'm trying to tell you something. Whether it's the book Liberty and Tyranny, whether it's Meritopia, whether it's my new book, it's here. It's here. Tyranny is here. And it's spreading. And I don't care what Bob Dole says. I don't care what the maniac John McCain says. I don't care what all their little scribes say. We have to reach out. We have a fundamental problem in this country. There are some of us who believe in liberty and private property rights and the Constitution, and some of us who don't. It's not a question of reaching out. It's not a question of bipartisanship. They're winning. We're losing. It's a question of whether you want to live in a free nation. That's the question. And the Democrats are on the move and the Republicans are on their back. You will not hear a single person but me speak out against this HUD thing on privacy grounds.